Hi, it's Mark Shepherd again, acupuncturist in Donington, Chichester, West Sussex. So today I have with me Stacey Donelson, all the way from Colorado, Longmont, Colorado. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to interview Stacey today. She's an acupuncturist, a herbalist, but also she is CEO and chief alchemist at Good Life Botanicals, which is a supplement company, which would be really interesting to hear about, as well as her acupuncture journey. And so, just to kick things off with, could you tell me a little bit about the botanicals, please?
Sure. So the botanicals, what it is, we combine biodynamic hemp, so CBD, with wild-crafted and organic Chinese and Western herbs. And it grew out of my love of being an herbalist. It's funny. I think acupuncturists, most acupuncturists I know, fall into acupuncture. It's not like they grow up wanting to be an acupuncturist their whole life. And I am one of those that discovered acupuncture, went to acupuncture school, was certain I was only going to do acupuncture and not have anything to do with herbs. I ended up loving herbs. And so most of my patients get herbs. I consider myself primarily an herbalist that does acupuncture. And during the discovery of all of that, we're in Colorado, and so 2012, cannabis became legal here. And my patients were self-medicating with it. It was super easy to get by, and they'd heard all of the wonderful things about sleep and anxiety and all the stuff that CBD is praised for. And so, unbeknownst to me, while they were taking the herbs I was prescribing them, they were also taking cannabis. And there started to be complaints that the herbs were too much. Most of the time in Chinese medicine, when you overdose on Chinese herbs, you just get a bad case of having to be on the toilet for a very long time. And that was happening to my patients. And I was confused because what I was recommending to them is known standard protocol, fit their pattern. There shouldn't have been any. So I started digging and asking questions, and lo and behold, what started becoming out, the commonality among all of them was that they were using cannabis. And so that prompted me to start researching everything that I could, which most of the time, at the time, the was coming out of Israel on CBD and THC. And because my patients weren't just using hemp, they were also using, really high-powered THC. And what I decided, I started developing this hypothesis that cannabis, whether it's hemp or marijuana, works as it's a potentiator of other herbs. And when I started, and I'm also a historian by trade, so I graduated with a degree in history, so I love research. I'm kind of a research geek. And looking back through the historical record of how cannabis was used in the past, yes, it's always been smoked and used freely, but oftentimes, more frequently than not, pharmaceutically or herbally, medicinally, it was used in conjunction with other herbs. And so I just started experimenting, and I started adding, I did a bunch of research because at the time, the industry was so new. I could have gone either into the marijuana part or I could have gone into the hemp part. Hemp was actually really just starting to kind of be a thing. And my lawyers were go hemp. Colorado and most places is a closed loop system. So I would have had to have grown it, and it was just really complicated. And I was like, I don't have time for that. So I started using hemp and discovered that for 85 to 90% of the people, that is exactly how hemp works. I would take my typical, I have a topical that I've been making forever, some pretty standard herbs that help with pain and inflammation. It's amazing for bruises. It's just and I added 175 milligrams of hemp CBD to it. And instead of it working for 2 to 4 hours, it started working all day. And the only thing that was different was that I added the hemp to it. And so since then, we've experimented with a few, partnered with and worked a lot with Andrew Miles and Lon, and we used some for some of their fibromyalgia program, which is how I developed the deep and how I developed the red. And then I've partnered in the past with Mark Brinson and his Evil Bone water, which a lot of people love, and he's so fantastic at making. And we figured out how, because what we discovered, and again, it's always come out of necessity. Like, acupuncturists were emailing me and saying, we're using Mark's Evil Bone water and we're using your Relief Deep. And, is there any way we can make they work really well? And so Mark and I were like, sure, let's figure out if we can make this work together. So I figured out how to make it work together. And so that's what I do now.
Thank you. It's really interesting. And so really using it as like an amplifier of the normal herbal prescriptions you'll be using.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned Mark Bryson and his Evil Bone Water. Now, for people over here who have got no idea what Evil Bone Water is, give us a little clue, because it might be something really potent from a local bar or something. But I know I've heard of him as a great herbalist. And so, could you tell us a little bit about what that might be?
Yeah. So Evil Bone Water is the English, kind of like the. I think Mark won't be offended if I say this, kind of hillbilly translation of Zhen Gu Shui, which is a classical, it's an ancient formula in martial arts for martial artists. It's what we call hip medicine in Chinese medicine. And it's a liniment. And so it's an alcohol-based extraction of these herbs that help with tendon and ligament and deep muscle bruising. And tendons and ligaments are really hard. Like there's not a whole lot of blood supply that go to them. So when you're hitting and you're punching and you stretch those or sprain those, that's usually an injury that takes a really long time to heal. And this particular formula is really good at helping that happen faster. And Mark has taken this formula, and it's something that you can get. I mean, we used to get the little red and black bottles from, as acupuncturists. And it smells like majorly mentholy and camphor. And so it feels good too. And he buys the highest quality of herbs and has figured out his own way of distilling them to extract all of the good yumminess out of them, and makes like this Zhen Gu Shui that I think is like at least 50 times more potent than what you get in the little like over-the-counter bottle. And he brews it himself. He's kind of a character. You can find him, just search Evil Bone Water and you'll find him. He has all these lovely videos. And so a lot of people love that because it feels good instantly, and then it has long-term benefits as well. And so for a lot of our pain patients, people use a combination of those together.
And so, from the martial arts perspective, like you say, for bruising and ligaments and tendons, etc., anybody who's out there doing sort of like hard manual work, or even someone who's a gardener, I guess this could be really quite good for them.
Oh yeah. Especially right now because we're all locked at home. And so like the gardening has like gone, it's funny. It's for the soul, right? I read this really great article that the reason everybody's gardening and being out in their yards right now is because it calms us and you see a tangible result at the end of your work, which for us humans is just deeply gratifying. But if you're like most of us and you sit at your computer all day and now you're out gardening, you're sore. And all of Mark's products and all of my products are really great for that. Like there's a Evil Bone Relief, which is what I make, which is the combination of our Deep Relief formula and his Evil Bone Water. He's found has been really good for delayed onset muscle soreness. So he's a CrossFitter and he's shared that a lot with his CrossFit team. And that's a really common thing. And that's a common thing that we're all experiencing. If you're going out and you're deciding to dig, you know, a whole plot of garden and you haven't done it for a while, you're going to have delayed onset. You try to get out of bed and you can't move. And if you put this stuff on, you get done working, it's the end of the day, you take a shower, you put all this on, it feels really good in the moment, and you sleep like a baby, and then you wake up the next morning and you can still move because it's helped move all that lactic acid.
Sounds fantastic. It's I find it quite interesting that when if we were going to go and play squash or just kick a ball around for a while, we might spend a little while, you know, warming up and stretching. But if we're going to do about 8 hours of gardening, we just pick up a fork, go straight for it. There's nothing there to warm our bodies up at all. That sounds like a really fantastic product. As well as the as well as the herbs and the botanicals, you're also an acupuncturist as well. And so, how are you finding that at the moment with all the changes that have been going on?
Um, it's an interesting time, I think, to just be in the world and to be in business, and then to be a person who helps people in business. We have really restricted business right now, and we just opened up. We've only been open for 1 week since the close down. We were closed down for 8 weeks. And we are operating like per the mandate of where I live, we can only operate up to 50% capacity. And for right now, for this of my team, so there's myself and I, my husband and I are a team. He's also an acupuncturist and an herbalist. And then we have another associate who works with us, and then 2 office support staff. And at the moment, it's just myself and one of the support staff that's back in. Mostly because of for protection, but also because, quite frankly, with the reduced volume, we can't support all the people that we were supporting before. And so we had to invest some in savings and remodel the clinic. So before, lovely clinic, but it had carpets, and we had kind of like we had shelving, but it was all exposed. So everything was exposed. And during the lockdown, we ripped out the carpet, took everything out. So it's actually quite lovely in here now. Not that it wasn't lovely before, but the changes that we made, it's very, it's like it definitely upped the level of energy in here. It's very calming and it's very safe. But it's also very interesting because, you know, I'm used to seeing 30 people a day. And if we pack it exactly correctly with the schedule, that's how many I'm now seeing in a week. And so that's different.
Yeah. Well, I've seen a video that you've put out.
You know,
oh, so sorry. Carry on.
No, go for it. Sorry.
Yeah, I've seen a video that you've done of all the changes in the clinic, and it really does look lovely. And it is interesting when you're treating normally treating one volume of people, you're helping. You're kind of buzzing. You're on a roll, and then it's kind of kind of a bit of an up and down, or just simply a different pace to.
It's just a simply different pace. My be bored because I'm seeing one every hour and a half when I used to see 6 in that time period. 3 or 4 in that time period. And we're steady. It's not boring, but I also think that people right now are really craving people. And I think this illness is interesting in the fact that one of my patients told me, like, I guess I've been on a soapbox for the last year, is separating us, and it's reducing community because we were all gravitating towards technology and not in person. And there was a kind of loneliness and an illness that I was missing face-to-face conversation. And this illness has only made that much more aware. Like now that you have to be locked home And now, I mean, you and I would have always communicated via Zoom because you're in Britain and I'm here in Colorado. But there's several other people that I talk to now that this is the only way we
Yeah.
talk, even though we're in the same town. And so it's interesting. I thought clinic would be slower, but I'm actually mostly fully scheduled out with the new schedule until the middle of June, because my patients want that face-to-face, even if it's through a mask and through all the different things. So it's making the treatments sweet. It's just a little interesting because it's very different.
Yeah. So it's actually having a real life person there. It's quite a treat, really. Okay, you've got the mask, everything else, but behind it, you've got the eyes, you've got the person, you've got the conversation. So that's really great to have. And so one thing I always like to ask is, what kind of took you into what you do now? What was the catalyst that kind of got you there? But you know, but saying that, it's been so interesting learning about the hemp side of things that you do. And as someone who's been doing martial arts on and off since I was 17, that sounds like useful stuff. And but as you were saying, that's just one aspect, the evil bone mortar, but then you've got all the other uses that you have for the herbs. But yeah, I will still indulge myself with that question. So, what got you into all of this? Because I just find it fascinating.
So I kind of say the universe had to kick my butt into doing this. I grew up on a ranch in the middle of Wyoming, in the middle of nowhere. I'm sixth generation Wyomingite. And, you know, my great grandmother was really good at, excuse me, oops. Oh, it's right here. My alarm went off. Sorry about that. I didn't even think about that. My great grandmother used kitchen medicine. So she was Scotch Irish. And so a lot of those kind of traditions came down from her. And I was one of those kids growing up that I was always curious, and I always saw connections in different things that people didn't necessarily see. And I could never quite believe that I suffered a lot from chronic strep throat. And it just never was just because bacteria. Like, I was like, well, if I got it once and you gave me stuff, I should be able to not get it again. And why do I keep getting it again? And they never answered that question. I ended up graduated with a degree in history and then became a computer programmer, moved to New York City, where back east, because of the mold and the humidity, I had really bad chronic sinus infections. And I was in my early 20s. And my doctor said, we can either take you to an ear, nose, and throat guy, and they're going to do the surgery on your sinuses, or I have a friend who's a naturopath, and she has really great experience with these cases sometimes. So why don't you go see her? So that was really my first entrance into holistic medicine. Everybody I knew thought that I had been abducted by aliens because, you know, I was a speech and debater. I was hardcore science. And for me to be going to a holistic doctor, it was like, you know, those wacky East Coast liberals have really got a hold on you and we need to get you home. And, but what ended up happening was that through diet and through supplements, I totally changed, you know. And she graduated from Bastyr, which is a Asian college as well. And so she used a lot of, and at the time I was working with her, I was asking all the questions I'd always asked. And she looked at me and said, you know, the way you think, you would be a great acupuncturist. And I looked at her, I was like, what? And she was like, the way you ask questions, the way you think, that's the essence of Chinese medicine. And I was like, well, thank you, but no thank you. And she's like, well, what's your problem with Chinese medicine? I was like, everybody knows that it's just placebo. And I hate needles. Like, needles are not coming near here. And the only reason that stuff is because you think it works. And I said to her, I want to do what you do. I want to go to naturopathic school. And she's like, well, I'll be blunt. You don't have the personality to be a naturopath. And I was like, what? And she was like, Naturopathic medicine requires a super high level of compliance in order for it to work. And 90% of your patients will not do what you tell them to. Acupuncture and Chinese medicine works whether they do what you tell them to or not. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. I was like 25, I think I knew everything, whatever, I'm done. I was working for a .com, burnout from that, moved back home, was training horses, and the horse I was training got acupuncture. That experience is what made me go, oh, there's something here, because horses don't have placebo. And a week later, I was in a horse accident and broke my knee and ended up using acupuncture to avoid surgery. And my husband to this day will be like, when the universe gives you these little hints, take them. We can't afford to have you have a major accident in order to have you realize where you were supposed to be. So here I am. That's how I got into acupuncture.
Well, yeah, it sounds good that you took the hint then and just didn't wait for the next thing. That sounds really good. Yeah, and I've got to say, I'm pleased I asked the question because it's always worth it. These individual stories are just lovely. And okay, I know you've got a really busy day today. I better let you go. But before I do, is there anything? Can you just tell me exactly where you are? Tell people exactly where you are. I'm going to be putting
Sure.
your address at the bottom, your website address. But let's hear from you.
So I'm Dr. Stacey Donelson. I am founder and CEO of Good Life Acupuncture and Wellness Center in Longmont, Colorado, and I'm CEO and Chief Alchemist at Good Life Botanicals, also in Longmont, Colorado.
And I'll be putting down your website address so people can find you.
That's right.
That's
So,
all right. I'm putting it down.
Okay.
but you can share it now, just in case I don't get that.
Oh, it's all good. You can find the Botanicals at www.goodlifebotanicals.com. It's pretty. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you
Thank
for
you,
that.
Mark.
It's been great talking to you. Have a great
Yeah.
day, and no
You
doubt we'll
too.
talk soon. All the best.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.